Good morning, church. How is everybody doing today? All full of turkey, sweet potatoes, stuffing. I did hear of one family, talked to Isaac this morning. Apparently, Grandpa vetoed turkey in favor of ribs. And I think I'm in support of a new Thanksgiving tradition. Good one. That was well played. That was well played. I'm going to go ahead and guess this 2 cents is from Mitch. He might have left that here last week when I wasn't here at the fall retreat. Which, for those of you guys, if you don't know, my name's Adam. I'm youth minister here. Me and several of our teens were at fall retreat last weekend when you guys were here gathering, and the theme for fall retreat followed our theme from Camp Ichthus over the summertime, which was Follow Me. It was focusing on Jesus' invitation to follow him, what it looked like to follow Jesus, why Jesus is worth following, different kind of things like that. And our fall retreat last weekend kind of followed on that. The theme for, no pun intended, the theme for fall retreat was Follow Me as I Follow Christ. So a little bit different context of what others see when we try to follow Jesus. And my topic that weekend was when in Samaria. And so you guys are getting a little bit of a glimpse of what fall retreat was. For the teens, I apologize, you've mostly heard this already. So if they fall asleep, it's Sunday, it's about to head back to school. We'll wake them up. Randy, if they fall asleep, just thump, that would be great. But the idea was that over the weekend we talked about why it's important for others to see us in our example as we follow Christ in all different kinds of scenarios. One of our classes was titled "When in Jerusalem and Judea," which focused on places of following Jesus when you're comfortable, when you're among your friends, when you're at church, when you're on church retreats, when you're among family, different kind of things like that. My topic was a little bit different. If you can see the subheading up there, my topic is when in Samaria, following Jesus when you just don't want to. And I think if we're all honest with ourselves, there's times that it might be a little awkward, it might be a little uncomfortable. We might just find ourselves in a context where following Jesus might get some attention that we don't necessarily want it to. But why it's important to go ahead and follow Jesus in every context, in every place that we do, especially if we find ourselves in a place where we don't want to follow Jesus. And so we're going to start off this morning with a little clip from The Chosen. If you haven't seen The Chosen, I really do highly recommend it. It is a TV show. It's not from any big studios, although Angel Studios is slowly getting kind of big. They've had some movie releases and different kind of things like that you should really check out. But this is a clip from The Chosen. It's in season 1. And for a little bit of context, it is when they are in Samaria. This takes place after Jesus talks to the woman at the well. So in the TV show, her name is Fatina. That's obviously not scripture. But what The Chosen does really well is for moments that are straight out of the Bible, I feel like they really nail them. They really, really do a fantastic job. They had my vote whenever Jesus was not white and blue-eyed and with a British accent. So they went with a little more authentic route. But they've never sold anything outside of the moments straight out of Scripture as anything more than "wouldn't it be cool if." They're not saying that this is what we believe, what Jesus said, we believe what Jesus did in between these biblical moments. They're just more of a "wouldn't it be cool if Jesus did this." And so there's a little bit of flavor in that here because before this is a context where Jesus talks to James and John. This is where they get their nickname, the Sons of Thunder. And shortly before this, in the show, Jesus had James and John plow a crippled man's field. This man happened to be a Samaritan. He didn't tell them why. He just told them, we need you guys to plow this field and seed it, and just left them to do that. So a little bit of context there for this video. I'll go ahead and let's go ahead and play it, and we'll get us in the context. We're here in Samaria to plant seeds, not to burn bridges. Among my youth ministry peers, I'm a bit of an odd duck in a lot of different ways. Most of them are jealous of my beard. I have a bit of a different educational background than most of them. I didn't go to any of the really big universities like Pepperdine or Almost Christian University, Love Connection University, although my wife did, and she did get her MRS degree while she was there. I didn't go to Hardley University or technically Christian University or anything like that. I went to Sunset International Bible Institute, which is a much smaller school in Lubbock, Texas. We do some really crazy, amazing stories. One of them that this context makes me think of was this one professor. He was, you guys, a story so that you know who I'm talking about. He's a little bit taller than Rusty, really like red hair, kind of like the Genslers. Really small, really pale. He has the skin complexion of basically printer paper. And missionary can be tough. You have different challenges and things like that. And every so often you get a day off, and you just want to spend your day off just kind of in a sauna and just kind of breathe. Any sauna lovers in here? Anybody enjoy that? Anybody done that? I get like 3 hands. So you guys, you really ought to try that. It's really great. Just sitting in a room with a lot of humidity and heat and stuff like that can actually do you a lot of good. Well, that was how he would spend his days off. And so this one day, he had a especially tough week, was looking forward to his day off, went to the bathhouse during the week, hoping to find a sauna room all to himself. And sure enough, he did. And he's just sitting back, he's in his sauna just thinking, thank you, Lord, for a room to myself. I can be by myself for a little bit and just kind of breathe a minute. And he's there only so long when the doors open and a head pokes in. One of the employees of the place kind of looks at him, looks him up and down, and then ducks back out. Well, that's kind of weird, but, not too unexpected. And a couple minutes after that, 2 gentlemen walk in, not wearing exactly the attire that you would expect from somebody wanting to enjoy the sauna. You see, he's in there in a towel. These 2 guys walk in suits and flank the doors, kind of look him up and down a little bit, look at each other, nod to each other, and open the door. And after they open the door, in walk 5 or 6 other gentlemen in towels. They're there to enjoy the sauna. And when you're a missionary, it's really important that you know the context of the community, the area, the region that you are a missionary to. And he did, was very well versed in that, and he knew pretty much immediately, because of the tattoos that these 5 or 6 guys had on their arms, their chests, and especially on their backs, that these guys are Yakuza, which, if you don't know your Japanese culture, they are Japanese mafia. Bad guys, okay? Typically not the kind of fellas that you would want to spend an afternoon in a sauna with, right? And so the first guy that poked his head in basically he looked our missionary friend up and down and was like, yeah, this guy's not a hitman. And so then in came the guards. They looked him up and down. They agreed to, yeah, this guy's not an assassin. No, there's no way. Our guys will be fine. And so they bring in these 5 or 6 guys, and they're chatting up a storm, and he's understanding of the things that they're saying, and he didn't share exactly what they were saying with us when he told this story. But they came in, and they started talking, and they asked, didn't see him as a threat either, and we're talking to him, and he talked back in fluent Japanese, which got their attention. And they chatted back and forth and different kind of things, and he's sweating in the sauna already, but not necessarily because of the heat. And then they apparently liked him so much that at one point in their conversation, they made this gesture, which, if you're looking at this through Western eyes, you might think you might be insulted, which is because, yeah. But this was a gesture that basically meant, we're about to get some prostitutes. Would you like one? To which, of course, he said, no, thank you, which got their attention. They said, really? Probably never been turned down for that, right? And they said, why? And he said, because I'm a Christian. And they said, really? What does that mean? And it's at this point I want to insert yourself into this story a little bit. Somebody, you say no to someone who offers you, in their mind, a really great gift, but is obviously a teaching against that God teaches against, and you say no, and they say why, and you say because I'm a Christian, and they say, what does that mean? How do you answer that question? Does it matter the person that you're talking to? Because you're in a place, you're in Samaria, you're in a place that's all the culture's different, the pastimes are different, the everything is so different, but you got to stick with Jesus. 2 Timothy chapter 4 and verse 2 tells us that we need to be prepared to answer that kind of question. Why do you follow Jesus? What does it mean to follow Jesus? And what does that look like in a place that is not exactly familiar with what that looks like? Following Jesus in Samaria sometimes means that your environment and your circumstances should not influence your decisions. In the context of James and John, the sons of thunder, they got the traditional Jewish greeting from these Samaritans, and it was not a friendly greeting, obviously. They reacted poorly to that. People insulted them. That's going to happen. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But when in Samaria, your environment and your circumstances should not influence your decisions. Psalm 23 is one of the most recognized biblical passages in the world. Even non-Christians know Psalm 23 is in the Bible and actually have a decent concept of what it says. Psalm 23, I'm reading out of the New Living Translations if you want to put your eyes on it. Says, "The Lord is my shepherd, I have all that I need. He lets me rest in green meadows. He leads me beside peaceful streams. He renews my strength. He guides me along right paths, bringing honor to His name." Now, wouldn't it be nice if Psalm 23 ended right there? Like, imagine being a sheep and you're hanging out with your shepherd. Like, the perfect circumstances is exactly what that would be, right? I get to be in green pastures with my shepherd. He takes me beside really clean, flowing streams. Life is good. I can eat. I can sleep. What more do I need to do, right? And who wouldn't want that? Isn't that basically everybody's retirement plan? Work really hard, build up a nice little nest egg, be nice and comfortable the rest of our lives, and then go be with the shepherd. The thing is, that's not where Psalm 23 ends. It gives us a nice glimpse of the paradise for a sheep. But verse 4 says, "Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will not be afraid, for you are close beside me. Your rod and your staff protect and comfort me. You prepare a feast for me in the presence of my enemies." You got to back up to and realize that verse 3 and verse 4 are in the same context. Verse 3 talks about, "I follow my shepherd down right paths for His name's sake," in other translations. He renews my strength, guides me along right paths, bringing honor to His name. Then the thing we don't like to realize is sometimes those paths take us to some really scary places. Take us to some really dark valleys. But we're following Jesus there. Well, why on earth would Jesus go to some of those places? I mean, God is God, right? Everywhere He goes is beautiful. He wants me to follow Him. I am a sheep. He is my shepherd. Life is supposed to be easy and good, right? Well, the thing is, God is a shepherd, and He has a lot of sheep, and they're all scattered out everywhere. But the thing is, guys, as a church, our mission is other sheep. In 2 Timothy chapter 2, verses 25 and 26 tells us that we go to these dark, scary places sometimes because there's people there that need rescuing. There's people there that are being deceived by Satan. 2 Timothy chapter 2, verses 25 and 26 tell us this. "Gently instruct those who oppose the truth. Perhaps God will change those people's hearts and they will learn the truth. Then they will come to their senses and escape from the devil's trap, for they have been held captive by him to do whatever he wants. We call ourselves missionaries. We talk about the mission of the church. The mission of the church is a rescue mission. And I don't know if you know this or not, but whenever military guys or police people go in on a rescue mission, they're not rescuing people from a casual afternoon lunch at McDonald's or Taco Bell or Chili's, wherever you're going today. They're rescuing them from a very scary situation. There was a hostage situation, is a hostage situation going on in Gaza, in this Israeli and Palestinian conflict. Those hostages are not enjoying themselves. They're not getting 3 squares a day watching TV and playing on a PlayStation or Xbox while they're in captivity. God takes us into scary places because we follow him into scary places because people there need rescuing. And when we're there, we might get scared too. But your environment and circumstances shouldn't influence your decisions. In those scary places, we want to be timid. We want to kind of hide. We want to kind of go into the corner and hide in the shadows and just kind of be there, but not really be there. And I don't know where your Samaria is. It may not be a foreign mission field. It might be your school. It might be a classroom. It might be your work. It might be, some place that your friends really enjoy going that you just don't. I don't know where your Samaria is, but wherever it is that you find yourself least motivated to be a Christian, that's your Samaria. And I think God has called us all, when we are in our Samarias, to stand out, to be different, to love the people that are there because they're in a tough spot. And it's God that is there to help us, bringing us there to get them out. The scary places is where you find out also how strong God is and what he can do. I love in Psalm 23, going back to, you prepare a place before me, a meal before me in the presence of my enemies. Imagine the scariest place that you could go in this world right now. And God says, you're following God there. He's there physically with you. Maybe that it's in the middle of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Maybe he wants you to walk into Gaza to bring peace to a bunch of people, which, by the way, my opinion, Jesus is the only way there's ever any peace in the Middle East. And if you look for it, there's actually a lot of really encouraging stuff coming out of that. There's a lot of Muslims that are having dreams and meeting Jesus in their dreams by the hundreds in some cases. It's really, really great. You should look that up, a little tidbit for later. But that's where you find out how strong God is, because who else is going to have the confidence to sit down and say, let's have a picnic lunch in this really scary kind of context, the scariest place that you can imagine. Let's sit down and have lunch here. You're only going to be able to do that if you have confidence in the one that's with you, and that's God. God goes with us into those scary places. And so we know and find out how strong he really is. Another thing about when in your Samaria, you're going to run into insults and adversity. Okay? John 15, verses 18 through 21, gives us kind of this story. If the world hates you, remember that it hated me first. The world would love you as one of its own if you belonged to it, but you are no longer part of the world. I chose you to come out of the world, so it hates you. Do you remember what I told you? A slave is not greater than the master. Since they persecuted me, naturally they will persecute you. And if they had listened to me, they would listen to you. They will do all of this to you because of me, for they have rejected the one who sent me. If they associate you with Jesus, people are going to, at some point in your life, going to insult you and make things hard for you, make things difficult for you. But here's the thing. We need to, as Christians, we need to do something that is opposite of what our culture is really, really, really good at. Well, is really, really quick to do. Maybe not very good at, because a lot of times they're wrong. We need to make sure that we focus only on our motivation and nobody else's. okay? A lot of times the world around us, when they persecute Christians, they don't necessarily know the full context. Sometimes they just don't like God, and so they don't like you. We need to check our own motivations and not focus on the motivations of others. There's a lot of motivation assuming going on in our culture. You guys see that? Anybody on social media, you see it. I'm just going to go ahead and let you know. But we need to check our own motivations. The world hates you because of me, is what Jesus says. You guys know the old phrase, misery loves company? Yeah? Anybody ever experienced that? You get somebody that's just miserable, they're really mad all the time, they're really upset, and they just kind of want everybody else around them to be the same way. I've always kind of felt like misery loves company because misery hates joy. Does that ring true for pretty much anybody else? Little quick poll in the room. You ever been in a dating relationship, boyfriend-girlfriend relationship, and the other person breaks up with you? You wanted the relationship to continue, but they did not, and so it doesn't. And so they break up with you, and so you're really brokenhearted, you're really miserable, and for a little while there, maybe you're walking, maybe if it's in school, maybe you're going shopping at the grocery store, and you see this other couple that they're walking through, they're holding hands. They're calling each other little pet names, maybe kissing each other on the cheek and stuff like that, and you just experienced a breakup. What is your first emotional reaction to that? Like disdain, right? How dare they be happy? Don't they know what I'm going through? You get miserable, you get upset, and you see something that you want and you don't have. And that makes you even more miserable. Misery hates joy. Okay, there's a lot of fans out there right now of the Arizona Diamondbacks that really don't like the Texas Rangers or any Texas Rangers fans because the Texas Rangers have something that the Arizona Diamondbacks really wanted and they don't have it, right? Misery hates joy. They hate seeing all these Texas Rangers fans celebrating the World Series win. But you know what? They now understand what it's like to be a Dallas Cowboys fan, right? Is that fair to say? And I am one, so I can say that honestly, okay? I was a Dallas Cowboys fan through the Quincy Carter era, all right? So, yeah. But misery hates joy because it's when you're miserable like that, like after a breakup, and you see somebody else having a wonderful, healthy relationship, it makes you feel worse because they have something that you want and don't have. And I really feel like a lot of lost people, when they see a Christian walking around this world, walking through their everyday lives in a really awesome place with Jesus, they're in peace, even though they're mourning. The world is falling apart, but they know that it's going to be okay. When you're walking around in a really awesome place in a really awesome place with Jesus through really tough times and really dark places, they see that, and deep down they want that. And sometimes that means that they insult you because of it. Did you know that bullies, most of the time, will pick on somebody that they're actually jealous of? If maybe the bully's hard time, the reason they're acting out is that they're having a hard time at home. Maybe their parents are going through a divorce, and they see a kid talking about how awesome his mom and dad are, how much they love each other, and how amazing they are, and how they're never going to get divorced. Maybe that bully starts picking on that kid because that kid has something that they want. Maybe that bully is being abused at home by a parent, and they see this other kid's parents come to, dads, donuts with dads and muffins with mom, and all these PTA meetings and different kind of things like that with their parents. They're going to see that, be jealous of that, and they're going to pick on that kid because that kid has something that they want and they don't get. We have to remember that a lot of times when people insult us for being a Christian, it could be because they see something in us that they want, and they don't know how to react to that except for just being mad at it, being mad at us. We need to maintain our consistency in our walk with Jesus and do our best to maintain our composure when people insult us and people make life hard for us because we're a Christian, and get through that and hopefully lead them to Jesus. And thirdly, when in Samaria, you have to get out of your comfort zone or you're not going to grow. There's a lovely little story in John chapter 9 of a man born blind. And I have debated with myself back and forth exactly how I'm going to do this. And a lot of the kids that were at Fall Retreat are smiling now. So this guy, he was born blind. I'll just go ahead and read it. John chapter 9. As Jesus was walking along, he saw a man who had been blind from birth. Rabbi, his disciples asked him, why was this man born blind? Was it because of his own sins or his parents' sins? It was not because of his sin or his parents' sins, Jesus answered. This happened so the power of God could be seen in him. We must quickly carry out the tasks assigned to us by the one who sent us. The night is coming, and then no one can work. But while I am here in the world, I am the light of the world. So put yourself in this blind guy's sandals for a second, okay? If he's been born blind, then he's probably been begging his entire life, which puts him basically, more than likely, it doesn't specify in Scripture, but more than likely he's sitting at one of the city gates. That's where a lot of beggars sat, right? And he's sitting there, he's probably got a cup, got a bowl or something. People bring money and help him survive. And he's sitting there and he hears this conversation. Rabbi, he's like, oh, hey, holy man, awesome. I probably get he's got some followers, probably get a decent donation today, right? He's sitting there, he hears this conversation. Who sinned so that this man was causing this man to be born blind? And the rabbi's like, oh, nobody sinned and caused this. He's like, oh, yes, thank you. Somebody that finally understands. And Jesus, who the guy doesn't realize it's Jesus at the time, Jesus says, he was born blind so that the power of God could be seen in him. I have work to do while I'm here, and so I'm going to be doing some work. And as the blind guy, you're like, oh, this is really great. This is awesome. Got a holy man here, got his followers here. Today's going to be a good day. And the next thing you hear is, and you hear the little rubbing of the hands in some mud, and there's mud being rubbed on your eyes. You know where that mud came from. You don't know if it was the rabbi. You don't know if it was one of the followers. Somebody nearby spit on the ground, made mud on your eyes, made mud on the ground, and put it on your eyes. Now, that's probably a first. Is that fair to say? Anybody here ever experienced somebody spitting on the ground, rubbing mud on their eyes? That's not something people usually do. Apparently, it's something Jesus does. And then he hears the voice of this rabbi say, go and wash in the pool of Siloam. Now, what's the first temptation that this blind man probably had? I don't know who you are. I don't know what you're thinking. I'm going to wipe this off right here. Like, okay, wouldn't you want to? I mean, there's mud on your eyes, and it's human mud. Okay, it's like it's saliva from a guy's mouth that is now made in dirt, and you put it on your eyes, and he tells you to go wash off in the pool of Siloam. His first temptation was probably to just forget you. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. He's going to wipe it off. But he does. He does listen. Maybe he recognized this as the rabbi's voice. Maybe he knows what he's talking about. Here's the thing. You look at a map of Jerusalem, okay? And if this blind man, and I say if this blind man was sitting at one of the city gates, the closest city gate to the pool of Siloam was about 100 yards away. You're blind. And this guy told you to go and wash your eyes, wash it off in the pool of Siloam. Is that going to be an easy task for a blind guy? No. Is that going to be uncomfortable walking that minimum 100 yards to the pool of Siloam with somebody else's dirt spit on your eyes? No. That's going to be really awkward. People are going to look at you funny. You're not going to know it because you're blind. But you're probably going to hear the gasps and hear the murmurs and different kind of things like that. It was weird, right? Is that fair to say? This is one of those weird Jesus stories. But the blind guy does it. He goes to the pool of Siloam. He washes off the mud, and then he can see. Did Jesus tell him that if you wash this off, you're going to see? No, he did not. He just said, go wash off in the pool of Siloam. being able to see was obviously Jesus' intention, but he didn't tell the guy that. We have to get out of our comfort zone to grow. So we have to do the things that God asks us to do, even if it's kind of weird, even if he doesn't communicate the full, like, here's what's going to happen if you do what I'm asking you to do. Sometimes we just have to kind of trust, okay? You cannot stay where you are and follow Jesus, right? I love when the story continues. So the guy, he washes it off. He's blind. He's no longer blind. He can see again. And they basically walk up to him and it's like, who did that to you? What did he look like? They probably had the best intentions, but not really. Anyway, so when in Samaria, you have to get out of your comfort zone. Now, being in Samaria is probably already not your comfort zone, but you try to find your comfort zone, don't you? Whenever you're out of it. You're in a room with a bunch of people you don't know, so you kind of huddle off back to the corner by yourself, make your own little group with just you and yourself. That's trying to find your comfort zone in an uncomfortable place. You have to get out of that. You have to get out of that if you're going to grow. Because growth hurts sometimes. But if you're just sitting back doing the usual thing and you're in your comfort place, you're not going to grow. You're just not. Closing out the story of the missionary. So he's got these 5 or 6 Yakuza guys that asked, what do you mean when you say you're a Christian? They'd never heard that story before. They didn't know what that meant. So he told them the story of Jesus. To say that it was awkward and uncomfortable would do well. He's in a towel in a room with other sweaty guys who are in towels as well, and that's it. And so they obviously hadn't heard of Yahweh God, Jehovah God, so he started in Genesis. He tells them the story of God so that he can tell them who Jesus is, God in human form. And the way he says this, guys, look, anybody ever teach little kids? Like a young kids class? You know that moment when you're telling them a story, maybe it's a Bible story. This happened to me when I told a group of maybe like first graders the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego the first time. You know the kind of look they get on their face when they're fully into a story? The way he tells it is that these 5 or 6 Yakuza guys were on the floor in a semicircle around him, on their knees, in that little kid just like in awe pose as he told them the story of Jesus. A couple of them were crying as he told about Jesus' sacrifice and the love that he had. And he finished, and he said, and he basically saying, that's the story of Jesus. And they were like, wow, that's a great story. And he said, well, you know, I'm a follower of Jesus. What's what it means to be a Christian. I'm a Christian. He does the thing. He's like, you know, you guys could follow Jesus too. You could be Christians too. And it's at that point that they laugh. Big belly laughs. In genuine, not in like a making fun of you kind of way. And they said, oh, that would be amazing. But there's no way that a God in creation could ever forgive us for the things that we had done. And despite his best efforts in trying to convince them otherwise, they shook hands, they left as friends, and they did not become Christians that day. But because a missionary was there and was willing to say no to what for a lot of people might have been a really big temptation to say yes, he stuck with Jesus, he followed Jesus, he introduced Jesus to these Yakuza, high-end, whoever they were. He planted seeds. He didn't burn bridges. Now it's up to God to cause those seeds to grow. He doesn't know of any, he hadn't heard of any Yakuza warlords or anything like that suddenly becoming Christians, but you probably wouldn't have, right? Who knows what that is? Maybe they told a story to somebody else. It's in God's hands. But when in Samaria, we do our best to not allow our environment and circumstances to influence our decisions. We accept that we're going to run into insults and adversity and prepare for that and persevere through that. And we have to get out of our comfort zone, because we have to remember when we're in Samaria, we have to remember that we are a missionary. You are a missionary in your Samaria. I'm a missionary in my Samaria. Wherever you are that is uncomfortable, you least want to be a Christian at that time, you are in your Samaria, and it's really more important that you shine the brighter ever there. So remember, you're a missionary. Stay humble, because it's not about you. It really is about them, okay? Be consistent. It's really important that you be consistent in your Samaria, in your sticking with Jesus, and in the language that you use, the actions that you take, the people that you talk to, the things that you say no to. It's important that you be consistent. It's also important that you be patient, okay? Because nobody's going to convince a Yakuza warlord to become a Christian in one conversation, right? Be patient and be different. Because Jesus says in John 15, the world's going to hate you because of me. If it doesn't hate you, now there's kind of a concept, don't you think? It's like, if you're a Christian, the world every once in a while does not like you, right? Because of the decisions you're making. It's very important that we be different. And always remember that Jesus is with you. So keep in mind the why I'm here, like he talked about in the clip. Why he's here is why you're there. It's to make big differences that'll last generations in places that Jesus isn't talked about very much. Okay? And always we need to always remember to plant seeds to not burn bridges. That's why he's here. That's why we're there. It's to live a life that reflects Jesus in such amazing ways that people come to you and ask you, what makes you different? Why did you say no to that? Why did you say yes to this? Why did you help this person who insulted you before? And the answer basically is because Jesus did all that for me first. I was once his enemy. Now I'm his brother or his sister. Because Jesus changed my life, he can change yours too. Wherever you find yourself in a Samaria, keep these things in mind. To stick with Jesus closer, shine all the brighter. Because the world is a dark and scary place. And there's a lot of people in it that make it dark and scary sometimes. Wouldn't it be great if we planted seeds and didn't burn bridges, and we did, and all of those people decided to follow Jesus? Imagine the world that it would make. So if there's anything that we can do for you this morning, if you're having a hard time in your Samaria, if you want prayers to the church, we'll be happy to pray over you. If you're like if you've been in Samaria and you don't know who this Jesus guy is, we'd love to introduce you to him. If there's any kind of service that we can provide to anybody here this morning, this is the time that we invite you down to share that with us and let us help you. There'll also be shepherds and Rusty around, who's also a shepherd. Sorry, Rusty, I forgot about that. But there are other people around the congregation, around the building that are willing to accept you and hear you out as well. We are here to help. It's why we're here, because it's why he's here. So if there's anything we can do to help you this morning, please stand and come on down as we stand and sing.